Boa tarde e na próxima vez eu vou falar em português, mas agora não, agora vai falar em inglês. Well, I want to tell you something about the situation of opera especially in German, with a focus on Germany, because maybe at the moment it is the most important country for opera in the world. I will explain this, but I want to start and I want to give you a survey for your profession, and the aim of this lesson is to give you some support when you one day come to Europe. Because a lot of young students or a lot of young people come to Europe each year, and they are doing a lot of mistakes. And I think sometimes I'm really sad about this, but they behave like blinds in a completely different atmosphere, or in a completely different landscape. So let's start. 1598, what was this year? It was 1598. It was perhaps, well, the old musicians will always argue, you know, it's a discussion, it's an argument between Peri and his first Baroque play, but it was, some say it was a game, a musical game, and like Mozart made it some years later, a Gesangspiel. But perhaps it was the birth of the opera, but the real official birthday of opera was in 1600 and no, a little later, 7, as far as I remember. Am I right? Yes. Even this, okay. I'm not a scientist for music, but the real first opera, which was named opera, was by Monteverdi, and this was the beginning of opera. This means we have about 100, maybe 200 years of Baroque opera with beautiful pieces, and the center of Baroque opera was, of course, Italy. Though, by the way, you have, even here in Brazil and even in South America, you have a lot of Baroque tradition. And keep attention to this. It's really worthy to discover. And it's perhaps a good chance for you, because we know in Europe, we know of this Baroque tradition from Latin America only by European musicians who discovered this kind of opera, this kind of music for themselves. But why not? We discover Latin American ensembles, Latin American singers, Latin American musicians who tell us the story from their point of view. So this was one thing, but then there was a year, perhaps you know this, it was for the European history very important. It was 1789. Oh, excuse me, 89. What was this year? Do you know this? It was the beginning of the French Revolution, the beginning of the Grand Terror a little later, but that's not true for an opera singer. It was the year the Magic Flute was composed, and maybe more important for the German history, for the German operatic history, and for this what formed the whole landscape in Europe, in a lot of countries. In 1789, the first German Stadttheater was founded. This Stadttheater was in Freiberg. It's a small city in Saxony, and it was a very rich city, and people wanted to have an opera house on their own. And before this, all opera houses, all opera companies were royal companies or noble companies. And in this year, the first time, very simple people said, we want an opera house on our own. So this was the beginning. And now I have to tell you what it means, Stadttheater. It means usually 3 sections, 3 departments, sometimes up to 5. It's at first opera, music department. The second is ballet. The third is speaking, drama, whatever. And sometimes we have children's, or not sometimes, really frequently, we have children's department, children's theater. And we have some Stadttheater in which we have puppets, puppet theater, marionette, or whatever. So you have up to 5 different sections in a Stadttheater. This is the result for the audience. But what does it mean for the inner structure of a Stadttheater? It means at first a permanent ensemble. A permanent ensemble means you as an opera singer, or you as an actress, or as a puppet player, you get contracts. And you get contracts for usually 2 years today. That's the regular thing. So I will explain this later once again, but now I want to get back to Saxony, to Freiberg. Well, it was the first real steady Stadttheater, and this developed very easily, very frequently, and today we have 68 theaters with music, with a steady music department, with a steady drama, etc. So when you compare this with other countries, or when you try to compare this with the rest of the world, so one has to say, it's more than half of all opera companies are in Germany. And the number has increased, not in Germany, but in the rest of the world because of China. At the moment, China tries to get #1, and they have they build up new opera houses there. But there's there is something one has to say. The number of operas they play in China is perhaps 3 or 4 or 5. It's Turandot, it's perhaps Butterfly, and it's Aida, and maybe the Magic Flute, and sometimes it's the Bat, die Fledermaus, well, and Carmen. So, but this is almost everything. It's a very reduced circle of a very small number of operas. But frankly spoken, when you compare this with the Spielplan, with the schedule here in Brazil, is it that different? I don't know. The range of, or the variety of operas, of works which seem to be worth to produce is very small. It's, when you come to Argentina, it's bigger. The schedule there is much more open, and sometimes it's even open for contemporary operas, but it's reduced. When you come to Europe, you will see, oh, the Spielplan, this is the range or the variety of opera works which will be shown there. It's much wider. There are much more works which will be produced. And when you come to Germany, you will see even in very small towns, you can, for instance, Freiberg, to take this example, Freiberg is a city of 30,000, a little over 30,000 people. They have an opera house which plays the whole year over. And there are some other small cities with 30, 40,000 people, and they really, each year they produce a Spielplan with different opera company, with different opera works. So now I want to present you something of a typical Spielplan in any opera house in Germany. It is usually one Italian opera. In smaller towns, in little towns, it could happen that they produce this Italian opera, by the way, in German. This could happen, but okay, we say the tendency is more to produce in the original language. But this is one Italian opera or a French opera, but this is quite difficult because of the chorus. The chorus in Germany, you know, we have contracts. Contracts is everything in Germany. And like Wotan said, Vereinbarungen sind alles, or like this. And he said, the chorus is obliged to sing in German, of course, and in Italian. And all the other languages are free. And for all the other languages, they get more money. And sometimes the intendant says, I don't have that much money, so whether we play this in German, then it's more easy, or next year. So, well, one Italian opera or a French one, at least one of the big German operas, usually one operetta, which is normally in German. There are only very small, well, there's La Rondine and perhaps something else, but usually operetta is in German. Then perhaps a musical, which is very popular at the moment. It's always done in the German language, and usually they cast special singers for the musicals, because the modern or the new musicals are made for belt singing, and this is something different. And when you have a classical technique, a classical voice technique, you cannot do this. But for the smaller roles, it could happen that you have to sing this as well. For instance, when you take a musical like, for an example, Jesus Christ Superstar, which is quite popular, you have the Jesus and the Judas and Maria Magdalena. Three people who sing in the belt technique. But the rest of the ensemble, they say, okay, you're Caiaphas. Caiaphas is for a bus, and he has to sing this. He has to change a little bit of the color, but it's okay. So, well, and then we have 5 positions, but usually every opera company in Germany produces 6 new pieces per year. And this means there is a 6th position, and this depends a little bit on the money, it depends on the audience, it depends on traditions, of course, but a lot of opera companies decide whether they produce a contemporary opera or a Baroque opera. So this depends really on it. And so they try to make an experiment. And after a while, the audience will follow or not. It depends on the intendant, perhaps. But at the moment, we have a very good audience which is specialized or which is accustomed to modern opera or to the Baroque one. So, and that's why I've mentioned this Baroque tradition here in Latin America that you have. So, well, to produce 6 works, 6 pieces a year, you need an ensemble. And you need a bigger ensemble, which is one part is a permanent ensemble with these 2 years contracts. Then you have a lot of people who get contracts just for 1 piece. It depends, sometimes they get for 2 or whatever. But the rule is the big dramatic roles usually will be casted by guests. It's a dramatic tenor or a real dramatic soprano. That's only for guest contracts, because they don't have that much to do for them, and so they pay for a guest contract. Well, then we have on the other hand, we have, and maybe this is the most interesting for you, we have these so-called Opernstudios, opera studio, or young artists programs, as it is mentioned in, or as it is named in the States, in the United States. But today we have almost, I would say, 40 theaters, 40 companies with an own Opernstudio. And this is maybe, well, I will sit, it's easier for me. This is maybe interesting for you. The application for Opernstudio is at first free. That means you don't need the support of an agency. I'm going to tell you something about agencies in general, but for Opernstudio, there are only 2 Opernstudios I know. It's Zurich and Munich. They want recommendations by agencies. But all the other Opernstudios, you can apply. You can send your information, your curriculum, your repertoire, a photo, a recent photo, and a good photo. A good photo means good in a theater way, which is different from a personal selfie or whatever. And an example, and sound file, and sound example. This is very important. So, and maybe you have the chance to use these master classes here, I don't know, to produce a good sound file. And what means a good sound file for an opera studio? At first, the intonation has to be right. So, and you should, of course, we all know it, you are young singers, and of course young singers have their problems, etc. But you should show some qualities. And one of the qualities is, of course, a quite good German language. So please work on at least one fitting German aria. And you should find the fitting repertoire. I know during the last days we had a lot of discussions here. One recommendation is don't try it too dramatic. Make it lighter. Here, well, sometimes it's very easy for you. It's only a piano. And then you think, oh, I can sing Tosca. Yes, okay, well, I can do this as well. But I won't do this, and you should not do this too. Make it odd. Try to find arias which are made for young singers. This is the only recommendation. Try to find an example in which you can feel as a young person. As a young person who looks with a view to the world which is more optimistic, the depressive sides or the dark sides of the world will come much too early to you, even to you. But at the moment, you should look in an optimistic way. So, the application for opera studios, or the best time for audition, is usually the German winter time, which starts in the, I would say, in the middle of January, because you know we have some holidays, some bank holidays in January, but after January the 6th or the 10th, it's over. So at this time it starts, and about March, April. Don't forget, when you come for making auditions, have a look at the calendar, because of Easter and Pentecost. So this is sometimes a little difficult. Well, then my second recommendation for you after a sound file: before you have any audition, please try to get some money, 12 euro or about this, or perhaps 18 euro, and therefore for this money you get the entrance ticket to an opera performance. Please go into one opera performance before you audition, because you will see the way we present opera, we present characters, we present dramatic contradictions, is really difficult. And this is one of the main errors a lot of people are doing. They think, well, I will apply for Butterfly, because Butterfly, you can play this here in Brazil, you can play this in Japan, you can play this in Germany, and the music will always be the same. That's right. Or almost right. Sometimes it's a question of, or a matter of quality. But anyway, this is only the opera. But when you see what directors make out of this in Germany, and directors have a lot of power. And many directors are intendants or opera directors, and they have the power to decide. And that's why in in Germany, and I think in a lot of other countries, especially you can, for example, Belgium, the Netherlands, but even in some Eastern countries, they look for singer actors, not for singers, for singer actors. And this was one of my experiences here. Sometimes I was thinking, yes, you're a good singer, but I miss this in your blood. So, and try to find some exercises here to act, and sometimes it's very stupid. I said, you could use a mirror here to see how you act while you sing, and then make some exercises, singing an aria while lying, singing an aria while standing on your left feet, or whatever. Try to find some interaction with your colleagues, with your student follows. Well, this is very important to get easy, to get relaxed, to make it a little more funny, and after a while you will say, oh, I behave in a different way, I try to express myself in a different way, I try to find other nuances. And this is perhaps the biggest thing you should keep in mind when you apply for an opera studio. And then make it. So, and then I cross fingers. Well, now you want to, or you should, I don't know, you should to know something about the market. And this is my profession. Agencies, usually we have small chances for a soubretta, because the market is big enough for soubrettas. That means we have a lot of young soprano girls, and the opera directors, the intendants, and all, they make journeys from one competition to the next, and they say, I want you. You are a good... are you a soubretta? No, I don't know if Carla was. Well, but they say, yes, I like the way you are, and I will engage you. Well, this is, so it's usually they don't want agencies to find soubretta, though it can happen, of course, sometimes. Well, but the main part of my business, the big money that I earn, that I get, I make with Spieltenor, which is very rare, Spieltenor or Buffotenor, you know this? The light, real light lyric one, because it's so hard to find someone. It is the dramatic tenor, of course. Sometimes it's the lyric tenor, but only sometimes. And it's the bass. And the best thing is the real the black bass, the dramatic bass, or the Spielbass, the Charakterbass, or an Osmin, or whatever. So these are really the voice types I'm looking for. In the female side, a dramatic coloratura soprano is really hard to find. Though it's you have a lot, but you have only a few real good ones. Well, this, and of course the dramatic voice types, dramatic mezzo-soprano or dramatic soprano, this is always hard to find, and there are good chances. Another recommendation is when you want to start a career with some experiences in Europe. We have a lot of, how can I say, a lot of festivals made for young singers. Usually, sometimes they have a donation, sometimes they have a fellowship or whatever, sometimes very small money. In other cases, they pay a real fee. It depends, but they are really made for young singers. And I don't know if you have something to pencil down here. I would tell you really, I would like to tell you some of the festivals, and you can apply, therefore. And it's the same thing. We have, for instance, a very old festival in Eutin. You know Eutin, it's near Hamburg, where Raminta works. And you know, Eutin is the birthplace, isn't it? Yes, it's the birthplace of Freischütz Weber, yes. And so they always make the Freischütz and 2 other productions. And since they have not this much money to pay agencies, that's why they don't like to collaborate with the agencies. But there is there's a official states agency. It's the ZAV, Z-A-V. ZAV, ZAV. It's a state, federal agency, and there you can apply to. The problem there is, well, they take almost everybody. And that's why the quality of the ZAF is not so good. And the bigger festivals, the real ones, they know it. And that's why they don't want it. But Eutin this is the only agency they accept there. And then they have an intendant, she's from France, and she's making journeys, she's listening to sound files, to examples one could send to her, and then she said, oh, this could be interesting, and it's a good festival. By the way, what they are doing there is interesting, and they are always interested in this. The next festival, well, there are some other festivals. Sondershausen. If you have it, it's an opera company. They have a very good orchestra there, and they have a festival for students as well. And you get a little donation there, but it's enough to survive. So another one is in Wernigerode, which is also quite interesting. They are very open to applications from all over the world. There's only one thing, usually they make German opera stuff. Not always, but quite open. Well, and then Zwingenberg, but Zwingenberg is more for musical, isn't it? Yeah. And not a new one, a renewed one is in Ettlingen. This was very interesting in the 0 years, but then they went bankrupt, and this year they started again. So. Yeah. So, and you know, Fledermaus, it's funny and it's a good thing with a lot of ensemble. So there are maybe more festivals, there are maybe more productions one could apply for. And when you want to apply for, it's good to prepare your trip. I don't know, you get a 3-month tourist visum here from Brazil. So choose the right time and the best time, the high time for audition in any cases, for fest engagement, for guest contracts, for Stück for piece contracts. it's really springtime. The German springtime is a little different from the Brazilian one. It's really from January up to May. So in this time, we make most of the contracts. So when you come, think of this. So now, what is my obligation, or what is my job as an agent? And when you want to get in touch with me, well, I told you, in which voice types I'm most interested, but in general, I make my auditions for all kinds of voices. But I'm looking for singers, and this is something which sometimes, or maybe mostly, which hurts. When I say, yes, you're a good singer, but what shall I do with you? A good singer is too less. I have to, what I'm looking for is something special. I need a singer, and I have to get the feeling that this singer he's got it in his blood, it's in his heart. I'm looking for singers who are able to repeat this, to repeat an aria in the same quality, or in almost the same quality as you did it with my audition. Because when you make your audition, or someone makes its audition, and I say, oh wow, I was inspired, I loved it, I want to get you in my agency. This is the first step with the audition. The second thing I say, so now let's meet for a cup of coffee, because I want to see what kind of person is behind this. You know, an audition takes between 10 minutes and 15 minutes. That's the usual thing. And it's impossible to get to know a personality in only 15 minutes, being on stage, telling some words, etc. It's too short. That's why I want to meet, and we have a discussion, we have a talk, very nice, and I want to see how this person works, thinks, what is his obsession, what is his idea of working, and there are some special features. One of the, because it must be more. One of the features is what is the, well, I don't know the English word, Pünktlichkeit, being at a point. Punctuality, oh, fine. So when I say we meet at 5, then it is at 5. And this is important, because in an opera house, when they say it's rehearsal start at 10 in the morning, you have to be there. And nobody wants to wait. And when the director has to wait, they will give you some argue. Well, it causes some argue. Well, and I want to say something about I want to see the stability of the person, of the personality. And well, you can't be everything in my agency, but in all agency. Nobody would say anything if you are gay, lesbian, black, yellow, whatever. This does not mean anything, really. But what we want to feel and see is a stable personality, because this job is very hard. It's just think when you have a piece contract, just for one opera, you have 6 weeks of rehearsals. You are in a strange town. You do not know anybody there. It's all new for you. And the rehearsals start in the morning, but sometimes in the evening, so it changes. And there are a lot of times you feel alone. And you have to come over this, you have to survive this. It's a hard situation. And this do I mean with stable personality, and this do I mean when I say you have to find a certain technique to come over, to live with this situation. It might be yoga, it might be Alexander technique or whatever, or it might be a very open personality who says, well, I want to get to know all my colleagues. This is the best thing. It should not be anything of alcohol or whatever, because this is always a disaster, or this will be a disaster. This is I would say the main thing. Then another point I'm looking for is, are you able to have a conversation? And you know, when you are engaged in an opera company in Germany, the director and maybe your colleagues, they all speak English. It's very common, it's very easy. But when you enter the house, there's a service, a guardman or whatever. He does not speak German. But he does not speak English, excuse me, he speaks German. And it's really funny, and he loves it when you say, "Hallo, guten Tag." Well, and it's the same thing with the makeup artists, with the costume people, with the light, with the technique on the stage. And by the way, for the techniques, the technicians, they are not allowed to speak another language than German. It's of course they can do this, but all the orders on the stage have to be in German, because it's a matter of security, of insurances, and it was one of the just to explain this example. 4 years ago, we had this big refugee crisis in Europe, and within 1 year, more than 1 million people came to Germany. Well, and there have been a lot of theaters try to engage young people from Arab countries to work as technicians, because technicians are needed. We are looking for technicians. It's a rare profession at the moment, and a lot of opera companies, or of Stadttheater, it's not only opera, they really need technicians. For light, for sound, for everything, for stage design, etc. And they try to engage people from Arab, but none of these programs found to an end. They have already shut down, already terminated after a very short time, because these Arab boys could not speak German. And you have to understand the orders there. And that's why it's impossible. And this means for all the opera singers, for the actors, the orders of the techniques, of the instructors, etc., have to be done in German. And you have to understand it. So, rechts, links, nach hinten, or whatever. So, this is the last point. 3 minutes, okay. Well, and then after a while, when I see, oh, this artist could be interesting, then I say, let's make a contract. So, in German we have, or in Europe, it's a European law. They have changed. Well, in earlier times we had these so-called exclusive engagements, exclusive contracts between an agency and an artist. But it is not allowed any longer. There is an exception, which means when both sides decide to make an exclusive contract, then it is. And of course the big stars, like, you can take every name, if it doesn't matter if Netrebko or Garancha or whoever, they have of course exclusive contracts. And the international agencies, they are very powerful. And sometimes for young singers, when they are very good, it's interesting to start in such a big agency and such a big management. But on the other hand, the reality is they take you for one position or one contract, and then they let you alone. And they say, okay, we take the money, it's quite good, but after a while we are not interested. Well, because they want to earn money really with the big ones, or they are specialized like Takt, they are specialized in the Russian singers and in the Russian opera, etc. So having an agency could be interesting for a ready singer. So, and this is, you should apply for an audition when you are ready, not when you feel ready or when you think, oh, I'm in Germany at the moment, I want to make an audition. Well, then I say, okay, I'll listen to you, but it could happen that I say after one aria, thanks. Well, I'm a more polite one, so I give a resume. But there are other agents, they say, thank you, bye. So that's it. No resume, nothing. They don't explain anything, and it's on you to find the reason. And it's really hard. You cannot find the reason on your own. So really think. Try to reflect yourself. Try to, as I say, the shadow. Look in the shadow and think in the mirror. Excuse me. Look in the mirror and say, "Am I ready or not?" And when you really be so clever, ask some of not your friends, because your friends will always tell you that you are great, that you are wow. No, ask a more neutral person. Really say, please have a look, listen to this, listen to the intonation. Of course, it should not be your enemy, because your enemy will always tell you you are wrong, and they will criticize. But a neutral person, someone who is independent, and they will give you maybe a good resume, and then when you are ready, you should audition in Germany, for example, by the way. So, thank you.